Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. I'm Tony Mikla.
Evan Hogger.
And we're here with a special guest.
I'm Kim Manlangit.
Kim's good to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
Excited to have you here finally. So Kim's one of our lead therapists. She runs our Davis location out on right near UC Davis, out in Davis, California. And she also works at our Sacramento office on a regular basis. So
yeah,
good to have you.
It's a pleasure. I mean, there's been some big names in this podcast now. So
Just add you right to it.
yeah, I'm just slipping right in.
Yeah, we got MLB All-Stars. We got NFL veterans.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
And the PTs.
I love it. Yeah, get to know us a little bit.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little about the ACL, and a new program that we're offering is a virtual ACL program. We'll talk about why that's something we felt was so important to offer and really our reach with it. But Kim's really our resident ACL expert and super passionate about the topic, so hopefully a lot of good stuff about that and overall knee rehab and return to sport progression. So this will be fun.
Yeah.
So Ev, what are we drinking tonight?
All right. Well, first, let's start with the fact that this is down here. Which means Tone had a little sip before.
Yeah,
Someone started early. It's okay.
We had a pre-beer.
Pre-beer, yeah. So we have the Denogonizer. This is from Drake's, which right by Kim's house, actually.
Yeah,
So
West
very
Sacramento.
relevant. West Sacramento.
West Sacramento. I'm a YOLO resident now.
Yolo County.
YOLO County.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but the West
It's a good area. It's a good area.
up and coming.
Once the Kings, the arena comes back and there's the Golden One Center opens up, it's like past Tower Bridge, Old Sac. Well, now I just told everyone where I live, but that's okay.
There's a lot of people up there. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Blend right in.
What about are the River Cats coming back at all too? They're going to start to play? Yeah.
They will, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll play.
And you can see the stadium right from the place,
I can
right?
see the stadium like right from my bedroom window, which is amazing. Right now, it's been weird. It's been like COVID testing sites in this random parking lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward for it when it's actually normal.
Yeah.
We might have a couple players that play at that field, so you can just watch from your
There you go.
room.
Yeah, bird's eye view.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
that's where we have the company party. We've already agreed upon that.
Yeah, I'm putting my 2 cents in there. The barn.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, you've been with us for just over a year now,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and from the Sacramento area, so it was good to come home and get back.
Oh, totally.
Get back here and get back involved with the community has been a big goal of yours as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
tell us a little about your story. Kind of what brought you to PT and back to really focusing in on the ACL here.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm from Elk Grove, California. I went to Franklin High School in Elk Grove. I think since I can remember, I knew I wanted to. Actually, at 15 years old. So the backstory is I tore my ACL. Tore it twice. I played high school basketball. Tore it at freshman year. Tore it again my junior year.
Ooh.
And I was really
Same knee or different knees?
different knees.
Different knee.
Yeah, other knee. And I knew I wanted to play college basketball. That was the number one goal. Right out of the gates at 5th grade, right out of the gates. And I just had this string of injury. The injury bug caught me, and so the torn ACL happened. Had surgery. Well, first let me backtrack. I was misdiagnosed with a knee sprain at first. Mm-hmm. So things that I look at now, I see I remember a swollen knee, just blew up that day right after practice, and then got misdiagnosed with a knee sprain. Went to the emergency room and told me I should be playing in a week, and I pushed it. At warm up, I did a jump stop. Just we all know this feeling. If you've torn your ACL, you have that one experience where it just kind of sticks with you. And I just felt that knee shift. I fell to the floor. So I may have done more damage then. I always wonder what was it? Was it really structural damage at that first time, or I knew it was the second time that was that. Anyway, had surgery, and then didn't have physical therapy. So I tell that story a lot, and it's kind of crazy looking back, 4 months of just me doing my rehab on my own, which is not the normal thing, as we all know.
Right. Yeah. Not the most ideal scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not ideal at all. And then it happened all over again. Got cleared 4 months in, or 4 months out of surgery, and then I was really that resilient. Like I really wanted to play. That's all I wanted to do was play college basketball. No one like put the like red light or even the yellow light for me to stop. Like played AAU basketball, played through my junior year. Luckily didn't get hurt then, but then played my sophomore year. And then junior year again, like with recruiting and all that stuff, like all that pressure, it's just like played year round, and then I tore it again. And there was a recruiter in the stands when it happened too.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it was all pretty
brutal.
traumatic as far as like,
absolutely.
my second ACL tear was a recruiter out in Columbia University, flew out, and I like tore it that day, like that game. So it's
The game they fly out for.
the game they fly out for was like right after halftime. They came in late, and I tore it like the third quarter. And again, both injuries were non-contact, so we all know now we can do something to prevent that with like the age group that I was in. Like female athletes tear it so much more prevalently. Like so, I kind of like fit every like stereotypical thing that you hear with ACL tears. Is all that.
Right. And you just saw kind of so much of your passions or your dreams kind of start to be like, oh, like how am I gonna get there because of this, because of the injuries, obviously, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a tough go.
Where did that kind of like click though? That then is like turned into the passion that you have now and like do what you do now. Where did that shift?
Yeah. So someone who wasn't even exposed to physical therapy, you're like, well, when did you know you want to be a physical therapist?
Yeah.
Like, it really was like me going through that 4-month process of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I have the exercises on a piece of paper here, but it's like, there's such a mental game with this. Like, no one's leading the charge. Like, no one's like telling me if I'm doing things right. The repetition, how I'm feeling, like, am I pushing myself too far? Like, my AAU coach and, like my high school coach, they didn't know any better. They wanted me to be on the court, and I myself wanted to be on the court. I was that stubborn kid, right? So it wasn't until I'm like, well, growing up and looking back at my experience, I'm like, I want to serve this population. I think that clicked faster than like, I want to do physical therapy. It was like all the Google searches and all that, like, oh, this is a career. This is a field that like you can help this population. So it started.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. And I think that's what, you can see that passion as you're working with some of these young athletes and some of these clients that we have now that you're working with. Is so cool to see that how you engage with them and how they respond, right? Because obviously when you've been through that situation, you can relate, then that's huge for the client.
Yeah. I can always, it's funny because like I have clients who are like at that age, like 15 to 18, like in that high school age. And I can just like, I can see myself in that, and I can see like the want to come back. And I think I pull that card out because like, again, I'm trying to be that person that gives them that like yellow sign, like, or the red sign sometimes to be like, hey, slow down. Like this is me just 12 years ago. This is me just like 15 years ago, like, so I just want them to be as like aware and as educated as possible. And like, and they asked me, like, they definitely asked, like, how are you feeling? Do you even think about your knee anymore? Like, has this like allowed you to come back? And it actually did. Like, I did end up playing in college. So I think if you have all the right information earlier on, you can probably save yourself a lot of problems.
A little smoother process.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe not tear the other one in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't go through it twice.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like when we looked at this space, so there's several things in our field of orthopedics and sports medicine and injuries that we've learned a ton about over the years. And this is certainly a big, ACL is probably one of the most heavily researched areas out there in our area, in our space, because there's so many injuries. I mean, the frequency of injury is so high, especially in female athletes, as you said, compared to males. It's like 7 out of 10 compared to 3 out of 10. It's, and actually at the collegiate level, women's basketball programs, women's soccer programs actually recruit backup players at the same position, which we never do in a men's program at the same rate that they do in a women's program, knowing that you're probably going to lose a player at some point in their career due to an ACL injury.
Yeah. It wasn't, so I used to coach at Elk Grove High, and I think I read like the year after I left, they had like at least 6 ACL tears, like that next.
What?
insane, right?
Whoa.
And it was like me just following along with the team that I coached as a varsity,
Oh my gosh.
assistant varsity coach at the time, and they had like 6. This was in like a single like a high school team.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
half the team, 6 out of
Yeah.
12,
Yeah,
15
that's-
players. I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible. The data is incredible. And then not only that, as you experienced, that if you do tear one, even if you have great rehab and a great process, the odds of tearing the other knee are significantly higher than otherwise.
Absolutely, yeah. And now the research shows that like if you're under the age of 25, like 9 months minimum, like that's the process. Like every time you delay it after that 9-month mark, like you exponentially like help yourself not get a re-tear.
Right.
Like you decrease that risk.
Yeah. And you mentioned being cleared at 4 months.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a time period here, like kind of in the early and mid 2000s, where there was this thought that it kind of was what used to be like a 12-month deal, and then there was this rapid rehabilitation process where maybe we could speed it up and get people back at 6 months. This is kind of a worldwide phenomenon.
It was the accelerated program. You're either on
Yeah.
the normal or the accelerated.
Right, exactly. And that accelerated program was getting people back as early as 6 months. And I think Wes Welker was one that came back at like 4. I don't quote me on that specifically, but it was
Adrian
something.
Peterson was around
Yeah.
like 5 or something.
He was. I think it was a little longer. Because
Really?
he tore it like mid-season, came back the next and killed it. But he was in training camp and everything all year. Absolutely. So some of these guys really came back quick and early and did very, very well. So there were some signs that this is a good idea. Like
Yeah.
it's fair, it's working. But now it's completely shifted back, and the data is overwhelmingly suggested that, as you pointed out, anything before 9 months is really kind of asking for serious problems.
Yeah.
And then anything beyond that exponentially improves your odds to do well.
Yeah.
And if those guys are our example, that's probably not the right thing because
Right.
both those guys mentioned are freaks of nature.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
that's playing in that same level that's not a great example for the rest of the population.
Yeah.
They can do
Absolutely.
things we could never dream of.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're asking like a 15-year-old kid to come back after you already have only like a 4-year career at minimum, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're trying to play in the higher levels, but like they're gonna push it. Like if you're not gonna stop them, they're gonna like I said,
For sure.
if no one stopped me, so I'm gonna keep going. So we have to kind of give them that reality check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And time is one component, but there's other things too. I mean, I think like you can say it's 9 months, but
Yeah.
9 months minimum, but then there's
Sure.
really like objectives people have to meet.
Right.
And when you're sitting there with your 4-month worth of sheet of exercises, like how are you supposed to know when am I good? It's just, I don't know. So
Yeah.
giving people these objectives that you do very well, these
Yeah.
objectives that you lay out, like here's your target. Once you can do X, Y, and Z, then you
Mm-hmm.
can do the next step of things. Once you can accomplish this,
Mm-hmm.
now it's time to play.
Yeah, and I joke with it. I think we talked about it at our education meeting that like Tony, I don't think I did a single squat during my rehab, which is insane. Like
Yeah.
these exercises that I were given were literally like, go to your local 24-hour fitness. Like here's like the knee extensor machine. Here's the hamstring curl machine. Like
Yeah.
go do it.
And do the
So-
straight leg raises
do
too
the-
for
do
3 or
the-
4 months.
Yeah, do the
Those are-
towel, do the heel slides for years on end, right?
Yeah,
There's
So
always a mini step down on like a textbook or something.
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Couldn't survive without it.
Right.
exactly. So what we make our patients do now, it's just like black and white, like and the process it takes. Those mini milestones that it's a long rehab process, like 9 months, like 9+ months. Like someone's gonna get fatigued, like mentally fatigued. Like you got to give those patients like a little wins along the way, and that's I think when I look back, it's mostly like the mental side of things. That's really the hardest part for some people. It's physical, but that mental component is like such a key thing too that we tend to forget.
Yeah, I mean, all of these people
Yeah.
have lost their identity. Like you were a basketball player. That's what you want to do. Your only
Yeah.
goal in your mind at that time was to play college basketball. And as soon as
Yeah.
knee goes out, that identity's now kind of in question. I'm not playing basketball right now. I'm doing tiny step downs and straight leg
Right,
raises. Like
yeah.
what am I really? Your whole identity kind of goes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm big on our Instagram on the ACL content. The ACL Club is something I've seen, which is a great resource on the mental side of things. So there's people out here. There's like a whole community of people who are like lacking in their rehab, whether it's like needing the physical and the emotional, mental side of things.
Yep.
They're just looking for answers, and I think this is a population that you think about is underserved, which is crazy for something that's so like an injury that's so common, it's still an underserved community here.
Yeah, it truly is. And I think it's underserved in the fact of, one, how to do it well, even though there's protocols and such out there, but really to have a coach to take you through the process. And it's beyond physical therapy. It's not just get in and do some rehab and have a great surgeon, have a great rehab, but then it's a lot of strength conditioning to prepare your body to come back, and condition all the cardiovascular support, all of getting the tissue ready to go, and then starting to challenge that ligament and that knee in a way that it hasn't been challenged previously. So so much work to be done there. So it's quite a process. I think athletes have a chance to come back as good or better than they were with all of that time. We see the similar thing with the baseball players with the UCL, is that it's really an opportunity for that year, for the most part, to really work on your body and take that into account. Because with the advances in surgery, the rehabilitation is not difficult in the way of, well, there's a lot of pain and it's a lot of difficult things to get through. Like the first 8 weeks or so is certainly uncomfortable and certainly challenging in certain ways. But once you get the range of motion back and they can walk, you start getting 8 weeks out, and you're only 2 months into it with 7 months to go. And then it's really a really specific strength conditioning program as to how are we now going to get this tissue to develop, to evolve, and to be able to be challenged so that it can tolerate real sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the graft site, as a consideration, like, okay, is it an allograft, is it an autograft? Like, what's that missing link that they could potentially become a tendonitis down the line if we don't address? So it's like really important that you see that whole thing come together. Like, you're not just treating the ACL, you're treating other components to this that, whether it's range of motion limitations above the joint or below the joint, like things of that nature. It's like it becomes like a whole process for people.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something I've been super passionate about for so long, to have a better way to reach these clients that go through it, because there are so many of them, but yet they feel so isolated, where they have surgery, with one surgeon by themselves, and they're kind of then put out there into the rehab world, and it's just real. It is what it is. But the reality is that really insurance is really going to want to pay for about 3 months of this process, and especially nowadays with these HMO insurances and these other basically they're trying to cut rehabilitation everywhere they can. If you're doing rehab for more than 3 months, it's paid for insurance, you're doing really good. But at 3 months, you get cleared to run at between 3 and 4 months. So you haven't done anything.
And how did you get cleared, right?
Yeah.
Like,
just by time.
Been through a piece of paper, like a protocol, an outdated protocol that you saw 3 months. But with us and what we do, it's like there's specific steps to that. Like, can you handle the load? Did you have a meniscus tear? Those type of things that come bigger picture.
Right. Did you go through these steps to earn that right to run?
Yeah.
And then do you earn that right to start doing some change in direction? And then do you earn that right to start doing some reactive agility and react to a different stimulus and play a live defense, and then start to get into more practice play and scrimmage play, and then eventually competitive.
Right.
Which is all huge improvements as you go over time.
So there's a couple limitations here then too. So there's limitations in the clinical world, like you said. It's rare to have a clinician that can kind of speak to that whole thing, like we call it the continuum here, but can get them to get their motion and their basic strength back, and then be able to talk like that about the changes in forces when you put cleats on, or how to decelerate, or how to change direction. That's advanced level stuff that you don't learn in PT school, and that's more strength and conditioning and performance world, right? So rare to find a clinician that can speak to that whole thing. And then the insurance limitation. They're done with their PT around that 3 to 4 month mark. Now there's these people left at this 4 month mark with nowhere to go. Maybe they go find a personal trainer or a coach of some kind, but then they don't know the back half of all of that and the precautions and how to properly, progress this tissue from a reloading in an injury standpoint, right? So now this person's kind of left in the world with kind of no direction, and that's kind of where this virtual program comes in.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's like having an ACL coach like in your back pocket to kind of answer those questions for you, because I see them online. They're on the Facebook pages. They're on Instagram. They're asking these questions.
People are still on Facebook.
People are still on Facebook. I know. See, I'm not. Yeah, I'm still on Facebook, but yes, But you see these people are creating forums and these group support things, because they're asking the same questions and they're not getting the solutions, because whether it's I had an HMO, looking back, it was an HMO, and I didn't even have physical therapy offered to me, right? So
And you didn't know what that meant at the
I didn't
time,
even know
right?
what that meant. I was 15 years old, right?
So there's an education piece here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kim, there's a great story, a great perfect thing that kind of illustrates this all for a kid that came in maybe about 2 months ago. There's another kid who did full, he was probably more like 10 or 11 months. He had a couple of complications very early on.
Yeah, well, actually, he was only, the kid that I treated.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
he was
I
like
treated,
9 or 10,
Yes.
did great. He goes back to playing high school football.
Yes.
And kind of near the end of his time, he's like, hey, Kim, I got this kid, I got a buddy on my team who's like 3.5 months out and he's practicing. What's the deal with that? Why am I still here? And Kim's like, well, hold on, pump the brakes. That's not good.
Yeah.
Right.
Bring that kid in with you next time. So the kid comes in with his dad, and the dad's like really confused. He's like, what the hell are we doing here? What do I need to be here for? And the kid's kind of also a little confused. So like this other kid, I don't know how he convinced him, but he did a great job. Right? Very persuasive kid. But so this other kid and his dad are in there, and Kim's looking at him, and Kim takes him through his assessment. Like, you're playing football and you're 3.5 months out. She kind of starts, you can see her like wheels turning a little bit. She
Right.
takes him through this assessment process and like just breaks down all these basic things the kid can't do. And then kind of shows the dad what football really is and what that's asking of him. And then you kind of see the light bulb like start to shift a little bit. And so now this kid that was 3.5 months out practicing took himself out of practice and is like full-time rehab with Kim, building himself back up, like 8 weeks in with
Yeah.
you. So probably around getting close to that 5-month mark. Looks like he's doing really well. So he's feeling better every day.
Yeah.
And then last week, his dad pops in without the kid and is like, can I pay you more? Like, he's doing great. He's like, I'm super excited. And it's just this total shift. But it's an education
Right.
piece, not necessarily just the athlete, but the families don't know either. So
Yeah.
that 16-year-old high school kid is not guiding his own decisions.
Right.
The parents are. And if they don't know, then there's no way for the kid to know. So
Absolutely.
there's definitely a missing piece there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even backtrack to that, I just had a kid I did an eval on who was just like literally five days post tearing his ACL. Like he hasn't had surgery yet. And like, I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but like talking to, having that conversation with him, and I'd be like, I felt the need to say like, hey, he's also a football player. He's a junior. And I'm like, this is a long process. Like this is going to take, and mom was sitting there and like, this is going to take like 9 months, like at the very least, like if we do this right, like you only have one right knee for the rest of your life, one left knee for the rest of your life. Like let's do the right thing here.
Yeah.
So again, it backs to my story of like, I feel confident saying that because I've been there, and it's like, yeah, I'm wearing a different hat now, but it's, you can speak to those people and you try to educate them as best you can.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think there's so much need. I've always wanted to have this ability to have basically like almost a group session. Not to say that we can group people together, but they have a collaborative kind of communication, like a cohort together where they can say, hey, and rely on each other and run ideas past each other and ask questions, because there's those deep questions. Like even with me having not torn my ACL, you have,
I have.
Evan has,
yeah.
Kim's certainly done it, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
But when that athlete comes in and starts talking about it, like they say a lot of things like, hey, how's this feel? Oh, it feels great. It feels great today. I'm doing awesome, But then when they get next to somebody else who has it, there's like a bond that comes. Like they kind of whisper to each other, like, how you really doing? Like, do you really feel good? Like, do you really feel like this is stable? Like, do you really believe, how are you doing here? Like, can we really cut right now? Like, you sure that's okay?
Yeah.
So there's still this underlying confidence that sits there, and I've always wanted to have a group experience so that people had the ability to do that with each other, and then obviously learn from each other in the process. And what's so cool, one of the biggest benefits I hope from this pandemic period where people have gone virtual and gone online, is that is much more viable now. It's much more of a real option for people to get together online and collaborate and meet with each other, understand more of different people's process they've been through from an ACL standpoint, but also for us to reach them and help coach them along the way and give them guidance to say, hey, there's a right way to do this, and let's coach you through it. And it's not cookie cutter to say that, hey, everybody's got to do this exactly this way and exactly these time frames, but rather these are the benchmarks, and you want to make sure you hit them.
Right.
That we know for sure, and whatever rate you hit them at is dependent upon how well you're doing. But
Yeah, and I you mentioned it, like we didn't learn this in PT school. Like I thought that would seal the deal for me. Like
Yeah.
I'll be treating ACL patients, like no problem. Like I'll never ask any questions. It's like I still have like classmates of mine who are asking me like, hey, I have an eval, and like, what should I look for? So it's like, again, if you're someone who's torn their ACL, and not to say like PT, like we know our jobs, like we know it well, but there is that time frame of like 3-month period where there's a missing link here. So if you're looking for that missing link, there's other options for you now in the virtual realm, right?
Absolutely.
And you can reach out these coaches who specialize in this.
Absolutely. You can. I mean, there's different levels of everything, as you know, and different levels of PT and knowledge base, and we've just chosen to really focus on this area because we're passionate about it, because we have personal experience of yours, of Evan's, of so many people. And we see it. I mean, I haven't torn mine, like I said, but I've known tons of young men who have, tons of friends who have, and seen them come back and seen the challenges they face. And it's important to me, as a coach, to help them get back to those levels of performance that they're striving for. And the reality is, it's absolutely possible.
Oh yeah,
absolutely possible to perform at a high level and do it really, really well. It does take a tremendous amount of work, and it takes knowing when to do what thing. So like when someone hands you a piece of paper, say, hey, here's the protocol, or you go to Google and say, here's the protocol, or you go to YouTube and watch a bunch of exercise videos, you can do that, and those are really, really good tools. But you still have a question as to, when should I do this drill?
Yep.
Or you should have that question if you're not asking it. Is this the right time for me to do this? And what benchmark should I have passed to get there? So we've worked through a process over years of experience, combing through the research. What are the best steps to make sure we hit these certain areas to be accountable to, so we can move forward?
But even then, given that you can't do that by yourself. I mean, going through that by yourself is still the same problem. If you do the 2 weeks from now exercise today, and you could blow up, now you're stuck in this pain cycle and you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Like, you still need that guide through the process. And that's not just with the ACL, it's what we do with everybody.
Sure.
Is we really are like, a lot of people that come see us, at least, are very active, athletic people that have done a lot of the exercise we do with them pretty regularly. If it's a football kid, he's done a lot of the strength stuff already. You're just telling him when to put the gas pedal down, when to put the brake on, what to do on what day. And it's really more about the coaching and the guiding through the process.
Yeah. Yep. There's so much to it that's more than just, as you said that, more than just the ligament. Like we talk about, like it's the ACL, but when you tear your ACL, you've got bone bruise issues, you could have meniscus injuries, certainly got osteochondral issues. The type of graft that you had, as Kim mentioned. There's so many variables that are all gonna play a role in your overall outcome at the end of this. And there's decisions to be made along the way, and there's things to monitor. Some people are gonna be able to progress super rapidly and have no swelling, and it's just they're just super impressive. And you've got some that, man, they do really great, and then you start to challenge them with a little bit of jumping, and all of a sudden, boop, knee blows up. Like, all right, we're a little sensitive to impact here, and maybe we've got some osteochondral stuff or had a bone bruise. Or something else that may have been involved that still needs to heal up. So we got to monitor how fast we progress through that phase. But then once we get through it, and the body adapts, we're back in business.
And it sounds so easy on paper, right? Like it's like this linear progression, but there's so many things. Like it's not all black and white. I mean, we're thinking all the time on our feet. Like, I think this person can handle this type of impact, or this person can handle this type of change of direction. So it's like it's daunting for someone who's going through that without, like, again, a clear guidance. And this is what we offer.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, they need that. You need that coach. It's just like anything else in the world. Like, I guess it's tax season, so I wouldn't want to do that necessarily by myself. So it's kind of nice to have
you got a guy.
You got a guy. You got to have a coach to be like, in this ever-changing scenario. The tax date just got extended because they don't even know what they're doing. So it's just let's figure it out. Let's figure it out.
That's right.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
But this obviously has gotten to the point where it's much more. It is much more planned. It is much more sequenced. There are steps to take and to follow, and there's tests to be done along the way to make sure that you're on track and you're moving in the right direction. And there's times that you need to take some more time in a certain segment or a certain area and say, hey, I gotta wait here, I gotta hold up here, or it's time to push. And that's really what the coach is for, and what we're there to do. Yeah,
I mean, strength's a huge one, right? Like, I can probably, even though you're virtual, like, I can assess your strength based on like either like a 1 rep max of a squat or a 3 rep max of a squat, and like have that information, or even like on a knee extension machine, like I can see what like the difference is left to right. Whereas if you're doing this on your own, like, you're never going to get a true assessment. You're going to feel like you're strong, but there's like small little deficits along the way that you haven't fully addressed.
Yeah.
And that's what, again, research backs backs up again that like quad strength is a huge component of this.
Yep.
Like at least 90 to 95 to even at least 100% of your quad strength should be like bilateral, like left to right needs to be 100% like accurate. So it goes to saying like, I don't know if your run-of-the-mill like person knows that who's torn their ACL.
Sure.
And having that guidance along the way helps.
Yeah, and so strength they could almost compare side to side, but like the speed of contraction is also incredibly important.
Right.
And that takes kind of a trained eye.
Yeah.
Usually.
And then how you train those things. Like one guy, you might train him with a certain drill, or another one might have to use a different drill based on how they're responding and where their strengths lie, weaknesses lie.
Right.
It's subtle things to change, and they're on the course is representative to specific to the sport.
Yep.
You know, we've got several MMA athletes right now. I think we have 3 right now that are elite UFC MMA fighters that are all ACLs. They're all about 6-7 months out, and Russ is handling a lot of their work as our UFC guy. And man, he's doing stuff we don't do with our basketball guys.
No.
That's for sure.
I don't run those drills.
Yeah. But it's appropriate for that group because that's what they're going to be doing, you know. And it's really, really interesting to see the specificity of demand of whatever sport you do or where your focus is.
Absolutely.
So it makes it a ton of fun to go through the rehab process too. And we hope most of our clients are sweating like crazy and working their tail off by the end of it. So they're having some fun too, even though it's. Not they'd rather be playing, but you know, it's everything we can do to get them there. So
it's grueling stuff. It's 9 months, right? You have to continuously progress, almost like each time you come in. So again, I think it requires a trained eye to see where you're at in that continuum, in that process. And if your goal is to cutting sports where the level of risk increases, then again, there's a risk management thing, and you have to get someone to help you out, guide the way of and it's not even return to sport isn't this like black and white thing. There's return to play and then return to like high level like competition. Like where do you insert yourself in a season? Where do you insert yourself in preseason or like beforehand? So there's so many factors here, especially for a young athlete that and their parents that is not considered. Yeah.
No, we got an athlete right now that we're treating together that's interesting, right? I mean, he's done such an amazing job. The rehab's been really, really smooth. I think we're 10, 11 months out. I wouldn't even consider us almost in the rehab phase. We're really back in the sport playing phase. He's practicing full and such. And it's really interesting, just from going from turf to grass, there's a tremendous difference in what he feels and how his knee responds. So there's always these subtle variables that we can't necessarily always anticipate, but as we see them and find them, then we develop a specific plan of action. Let's go at that and let's help develop the body's tolerance, ability to adapt, to be able to rehab this so you can get back to normal.
Right.
But there's so many little hurdles like that and variables that's where the coaching comes in. And I'm super proud that we're offering this virtual program because I think we can reach so many people that might be out there and be a bit lost as what do I do next? Where do I go? You know, what should I do? And if you're asking those questions, then this is the opportunity to find a guide, and we're super excited to be able to help you through the process.
And the crazy thing is like we don't really need to physically touch you. Like there's other ways, right? Like there's other ways. There's ways to get range of motion. There's other ways to get the strength that you need. So it's a viable option for people lost in this process.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And if we can't help you, like we have the resources to reach out. Like we have wherever you are, whether you're in Kentucky or Wisconsin, like we'll look for the best guide for you. So it's I think it's just someone in your back corner that's got your back that won't leave like any stone unturned, and will like really look for you to reach whatever potential that you want to reach. So
yeah, that's certainly what it's all about. So it's good to have you, Kim.
Yeah.
Love having you here.
Did you finish your beer?
Almost. I should. Yeah, I can finish it now. But yeah.
You were talking the whole time.
It's all good. I love your passion.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And love you sharing your story. I think it's I wouldn't say it's great. It's unfortunate, but it's great to see what you've overcome and kind of now to a point to say I want to get back to that population and make a difference.
Doing with it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean it's. like I said, it's underserved in many ways, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental, right? Like there's ways to reach this community. So I'm just happy to be part of it. And I'm standing on the shoulder of giants, like other people, you guys and other great physical therapists out there who do similar to work to what we do. So I'm just kind of doing my part. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the section here of what the fuck are we doing, I think has to come into play in this particular category, because there's been so much back and forth of certain things, and there's a lot of debatable things that have happened. But I think there's a lot of stuff out there in ACL prevention, like how do we prevent this problem happening in the first place, and what's the proper way to do things. So one thing we talked about this last podcast when we were talking with Bomber about like warming up and coming into getting ready to play and doing what you always did as a coach prior, right? And so we have this, and so this is my, Lute Olson's a Hall of Famer, no shame whatsoever, is my guy. As our coach at University of Arizona, we would start off practice. Yeah. We have to bring it up every time. But we go to practice, and here we are, like the defending national champions and everything else, and we'd start practice with 10 minutes of stretching. And I had just come from I feel like we should be doing some dynamic movements. Who am I to say, but just thought.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, is if coaches that have coached in the past and coached in years back is this idea of static stretching and just stretch and not do this dynamic warm-up, whereas FIFA's done some amazing work. I know that FIFA was probably one of the first to publish this. They have their 11 Plus program, the FIFA 11 Plus program. You can check it out on the web and everything. They offer it for free. It's fantastic. And it's a series of drills specifically for soccer. And FIFA did a huge amount of research on all of their teams that were competitive play around the world. And doing this program prior to practice reduced non-contact injuries of ACLs, hamstring strains by over 50%.
Yeah.
It's strikingly improved. Just to do 11 drills to warm up. So simple things you can do.
They're simple and basic drills too. They're all things that you've seen and probably done before.
Yeah, it's just a matter of doing them with some routine, working on a little bit of quality, and those things. And then, of course, there's the group Cincinnati Sports Medicine's been around since the early 90s.
Sports metric.
Yeah, exactly. Sports metrics, they call it, has really led the charge in doing plyometric work and ACL prevention, especially with the female athlete. So there's lots of great stuff out there. So if you're a coach that's working with a team like especially a basketball or a soccer team. So the number one risk of ACL tears in basketball, I think, at the moment. Yep. And then second would be soccer. Yeah. Both women's sports, of course, and then men's are further down the chain, but those are the top two. So if you find yourself coaching or an athlete in those areas, check out those resources or reach out to us and we can help you and send you a warm-up program that's at least legitimate that you could do. But warming up dynamically is just a critical factor here.
And beyond proven at this point.
Right.
No question.
Scientifically proven.
Yeah.
And it has to do with compliance, right? Like getting these like young athletes to do it 3-4 times a week. Like really like buy into it, because if it's gonna like stop you from having like an ACL surgery down the line, like why not?
Yeah.
Why not do it?
Yeah, and we're talking about seeing numbers drop. Like I mentioned earlier, like it used to be 7 out of 10 girls in basketball for sure, and soccer's right there, like 6.8 or some ridiculous stat. I mean, it's insane. So if we can reduce that risk, and we've seen it reduce down to more of what you see in males, like more of the 3 out of 10 number, with doing some of these warm-ups and these training programs that have a little more jumping programming involved, you can see massive changes in reduction of risk with proper training in place. So take advantage of those opportunities, take advantage of that information, and take 10 minutes prior to your practice and get yourself right so you don't end up in a situation where you end up in a 9-month rehab.
Right.
So minimize that risk.
Absolutely. Do anything you can.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys for listening to KIMEcast. We'll catch you on the next one. This was KIMEcast, and we are the KIME Human Performance Institute. Thank you very much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please hop on our social media. It's at KIMEHPI and engage with us there. If you'd like us to feature a topic or answer any questions live on the show, post your comments there. You can also check us out on our website at KIMEperformance.com, and there you can see links to content that we've posted throughout our podcast for more information.